read your thoughts. From the future.
The movies of 1985.
Hello, and welcome to week 28 of the year 1985. That's Tuesday the 9th of July to Monday the 15th of July. My name is Jason Hutchins, and I am trapped in the year 1985. Something went wrong with the time machine, I suppose. And what I do on this podcast is I spin a bingo machine to select a random number, use that to look up a list of 1985 movies in a little spreadsheet that I have, and then I just watch whatever movie comes up after renting it from a local video store here in 1985. So without further ado, let me just spin my bingo machine right now. And we have a ball out. It is number 10. 1-0. Nice and easy, number 10. So I'll just load this spreadsheet up on my Commodore 64 and let's see what number 10 is. So that is a Harrison Ford movie called Witness, which in the future you can rent on something called Prime or Apple, whatever that is. But here in 1985, I am going to go and rent it from Starland Video over in Beaconsfield. So when I was doing this project, I came up with a list of 26 video stores that really did exist in Perth, Western Australia in the year 1985. I couldn't get to 52, so I'm going back to Starland Video for the second time. I'm going to have to go to all of these video stores twice. Hopefully my membership card is still good, so I'm going to ride my bike over there now. While I'm doing that, let me pop on the TV and you can watch an ad.
G'day, guys. Notice anything different?
Gee, no, Furbeck.
Hang on. New jacket.
Nah.
I know, new hairstyle. It's so you, Furbeck.
Oh, come on, Walt.
Give us a clue. Ah, you're smoking.
Okay, I'm back.
You want one, Scooter?
Just pop this in.
Furbeck. Only dags need bags.
And let me just pause that before the movie begins. So I'm back from the video store. I've got Witness VHS cassette. It's a fairly black and red cover. So just on the front there, there's a photo of Harrison Ford. At the top it says Witness, and then in yellow text, Harrison Ford is John Book. So that's the name of his character. And Harrison Ford's photo is quite prominent, but out of his chest, seemingly, there's a door opening, and out of it is emerging this small boy, this 8-year-old boy. And then the text at the bottom says, a big city cop who knows too much. His only evidence, a small boy who has seen too much. And right at the bottom, you sort of see a field of grass and 3 men with shotguns. So turning over to the back, there's a couple of photos. There's a photo of the young boy in bed with his mum cuddling him, and then a photo of him sitting in a field with Harrison Ford with his hand around his shoulder. And then a blurb, and like all 1985 VHS cassettes, this is going to give away basically the entire plot. And I think that was deliberate, because when you're in the video store making a decision, you kind of wanted to make sure that you chose a movie that you would like. So it was important to read the back and know what you were getting yourself into. Now it says, 8-year-old Amish boy Samuel Lapp, Lucas Haas, witnessed a brutal drug-related murder in the men's room of a Philadelphia train station. He is able to lead police captain John Book, Harrison Ford, to the discovery that the murderers are cops, attempting to quash a corruption investigation. The danger escalates when Book realizes Deputy Commissioner Schaefer, that's Joseph Summer, Deputy Commissioner Schaefer's involvement. His previous mentor and friend is now gunning for the lives of Samuel, his mother Rachel, Kelly McGillis, and Book himself in order to hide his collusion. Book is wounded by corrupt narcotics chief McPhee, Danny Glover, and the 3 of them disappear into the Amish community, a society unchanged since the 18th century, without telephones, electricity, or cars, completely secluded from the outside world. As Book adapts to the unhurried pace of Amish life, he becomes romantically attached to the young widow, thereby unsettling both the solid young farmer Daniel, that's Alexander Godunov, who regards himself as her suitor, and her traditional father-in-law Eli Lapp, Jan Reeves. However, his place in modern society is reaffirmed when the murderers attack the farm at dawn. So like I said, that's basically given away pretty much the entire plot. Anyway, without further ado, I think it's time to press play on tape and watch Witness.
Hey, man.
They didn't know there was a witness,
Carter didn't tell me about the eyewitness.
Yeah, Amish kid, 8 years old.
a man of force,
I'm a police officer, ma'am. I have to talk to the boy.
a woman of faith.
You don't understand. We have nothing to do with your laws.
Yes, I do. Your son's a material witness to a homicide.
Worlds apart,
Now you have a witness.
Yeah, now I got a witness.
John, what's going on, man? What is happening?
You said we would be safe in Philadelphia.
Well, I was wrong.
He left with the Amish woman, right?
If they find me, they find the boy.
You bring this man to our house with his gun of the hand. You bring fear to this house.
Everyone has an idea about you and the Englishman.
They're looking for you.
I have done nothing against the rule of the Ordner.
Nothing? Maybe not yet.
We know where you are.
Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis. Witness.
Wow, this is really, really good. I love this movie. 4.5 stars, Mintox. You got to watch it. I haven't watched it since I was young, I don't think, and I think I really appreciated it a lot more now that I've gotten a bit older. Now, Witness is in Akira Kurosawa's top 100 movies. We saw his movie Ron just a few weeks ago, and it was the opening film at the 1985 Cannes Film Festival. Now, the Australian director Peter Weir, this was his first film outside of Australia, but he had a great run of movies. Listen to this. Picnic and Hanging Rock, Gallipoli, The Year of Living Dangerously, Witness, Mosquito Coast, Dead Poet Society, The Truman Show, Fearless, Green Card, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. And Harrison Ford, he was having a bit of a peachy period as well, because he'd finished Return of the Jedi and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, did The Witness and Mosquito Coast, the second movie with Peter Weir, and then went on to, well, The Witness really paved the way, I think, for movies like The Patriot Games and The Fugitive in the 90s, because it established a new kind of role for Harrison Ford, playing the investigator or the, well, I guess they like the agent or something like that. Anyway, before I go into too much more detail, let's get into the first 20 minutes. So we start off with white credits over a black background while some synth music plays, sounding very much like Vangelis in Blade Runner. And we fade in to a grassy field with Amish people walking past. And we see a horse and cart and an old village. They're all walking towards the church, and it looks like it's in the 1800s, but then a title comes up, Pennsylvania, 1984. So this is the big shock, I suppose, is seeing that the movie is set in the modern day, even though these people look very old-fashioned. And in some ways, the movie is almost like watching a documentary. It was a bit eye-opening, I think, to a lot of audiences to see inside an Amish settlement like this. The synth music is like this great juxtaposition. So that's like the modern world providing the soundtrack, I suppose you'd say. So it's a funeral that they're attending. Everything's in German. We see like a little eulogy and stuff like that. And then we see this young boy, Samuel, weeping, sitting between his mum and grandfather. And then they go and eat, you know, they have their wake, and it's a real community. Everyone's helping out, doing their bit. All of the German dialogue is untranslated. It's not in the subtitles when you're watching it or anything like that. Again, I think that's quite deliberate, but because we're outsiders, we're not part of this community, but it's sort of allowing us to peek inside. We see this character, Daniel. He's played by the guy who played Carl in Die Hard, who was actually a Russian ballet dancer who defected to the United States and got into acting. Unfortunately died of extreme alcoholism in the mid-90s. He had a big drinking problem. But we see him offering his condolences to Rachel. That's Samuel's mum. She's the widow. But he's also like trying to earn her affection. So, it's obviously that he's, like it said on the back of the video cover, he sees himself as her suitor. So much of this is shown just in the images. There's very little dialogue that you need to worry about. What dialogue there isn't in English anyway. And we see long drawn out scenes like Samuel, the grandfather, and the mum take the horse and cart into town for the young boy's first trip to the Big Smoke. And we see they're driving down a city road, blocking a truck and other traffic, having to stop at red lights. And we're sort of seeing our point of view of this Amish community. You think, look at these silly people, that sort of stuff. So we're seeing it from our point of view. That changes later on in the movie. The grandfather sees them off at the train station because they're going on to, whereabouts are they going on to? So initially, they're in Pennsylvania, they go into the city and they're meant to be going on from there to another city, to Baltimore, I think. And the grandfather gives them a warning. Be careful out there among the English, he says. Now, this is a warning that comes back at the end of the movie when the grandfather says the same to Harrison Ford as he's departing. Once he's sort of become a member of their community. So there's a bit of a transformation that happens. Now, after the first 10 minutes, they arrive in Philadelphia's 30th Street train station. And it's very much filmed just in the real train stations, and a lot of what's in there is still there even till today. I was just watching a YouTube video, whatever that is, of a person who went back in 2018 or something like that, and a lot of what's in the movie is still there, including the little birdhouse that he puts back up at the end, strangely enough. Anyway, the young boy, so they're told that the train to Baltimore has been delayed for 3 hours, so they have to hang around. So this young boy, Samuel, explores around the train station and has a few encounters, like he encounters a drinking fountain, which he's never seen before, and a little girl pulls faces at him. And then he goes and approaches an old Jewish man who's all dressed up. And the boy sort of identifies with him because they're wearing a very similar black hat. But then he realizes it's a different religion. And we see everything from the boy's point of view. It's very clever. The camera's down at his level. They do this quite a lot. And I think this is something that the director, Peter Weir, is really good at, is not just showing you something, but actually bringing you into that experience. We really see things through the boy's point of view. What really captivates his attention is this memorial for the men and women of the Pennsylvania Railroad who died during World War II. It's a big sculpture called the Angel of Resurrection. It's really there in the train station, even today. And it's a depiction of the Archangel Michael lifting a deceased soldier from the battlefield. Now, that's quite a important moment in the movie. And this movie, in some ways, to me, is very much like a Western. And I was comparing it to a little bit to Pale Rider and Silverado, maybe two Westerns that we've seen before this year. Because you do have this outsider who gets wounded with a gunshot and he has to get nursed back to health in this small village by these people who are quite different to him, but he becomes part of their community and ends up defending them from gunmen right at the end. And that's, if that's not a Western, then what is? Anyway, the little boy is still in the train station. He needs the bathroom, so he goes into the bathroom and there's just one other person there, a man washing his face. So the boy goes into a stall, and while he's in there, a couple of other men enter, and one of them is Danny Glover, and they grapple this man who is washing his face and slit his throat. And the boy witnesses all of this. Now, then they decide they need to check the stalls where the boy is, and he very cleverly slips underneath the wall between two stalls just as Danny Glover kicks down the door. So Danny Glover thinks all of the stalls are empty, but the little boy has actually evaded him. Now, he obviously goes and tells his mum what he's witnessed, and then we cut to all the police arriving and Harrison Ford questioning the boy and then bundling him and the mum into his car to take down to the station for questioning. And that's the first 20 minutes. That really does set up a lot of the rest of the movie. And the screenplay for this movie is actually analysed quite a lot by students who are doing film courses and for budding screenwriters, because it displays such a clear structure of what is going on. So it's heralded as quite an important screenplay. Now, music plays such a big role. You hear all this synth music at the beginning when the boy is looking at the statue, and during the murder, you get all this synth music coming in. It's quite striking. And it does remind me a lot of Peter Weir's other films like Picnic and Hanging Rock, and Gallipoli especially, which also has a bit of an electronic music soundtrack. Now, the music is actually composed by Jean-Michel Jarre's dad. And I didn't know this, but his dad was a big movie soundtrack composer. He was known for Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago and A Passage to India. And for this movie, he was experimenting with synthesizers, quite possibly because that's what his son was doing at this time. And in order to do that, instead of recording synth music using MIDI or something like that, he live conducted a little orchestra of 10 people who were playing synths and samplers and recorded all the music live, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Now, there is a scene later on in the movie, not too much longer than the first 20 minutes, where Harrison Ford takes the boy into the police station to identify suspects, and they do a lineup, and he shakes his head at everything, and then he looks at lots of photographs, he shakes his head. And then Harrison Ford has to take a phone call, and the boy ends up just wandering around again, like he did in the train station, wandering around this very busy police station. The camera's right down at his level, so we're looking up at the adults and things like that. And the ambient sound slowly drops away and gets replaced with this synth music. And we just see what the boy is observing. And he walks up to this trophy case and he's looking at all the trophies. And then he looks at this newspaper clipping, which has a picture of Danny Glover. And it's basically saying that this agent, this police officer is being commended for something or other. And then he looks up at Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford's still on the phone. He looks back at the picture, looks at some other adults. He's a bit indecisive, looks back at Harrison Ford, and then Harrison Ford realizes what's going on and approaches the boy and crouches down next to him. And then the boy slowly raises his finger and points. And this is the moment when he is saying, here's the guy that did the murder. And it's just such a good scene. Because Harrison Ford just slowly raises his hand, grips the boy's hand in his own, folds his finger in so that nobody can see that he's pointing, puts his hand on his shoulder, basically says, I'm going to protect you and I believe you. And it's all done without any dialogue. When you read the comments on the YouTube video, people go crazy for this scene. People saying things like, this is the single best scene I've ever seen in a movie. It's really well done and it's quite impactful, and it's one of those things that you'll be thinking about for days afterwards, I think. Anyway, let me get past that. So in terms of the cast, Kelly McGillis, she is really wonderful in this role of Rachel as Samuel's mum. She was to appear as the love interest, of course, in Top Gun just the following year, 1986. But when she was cast in this movie, Witness, she was just working in a coffee shop. And Harrison Ford had to go down there and let her know that she got the role. Alexander Godunov, like I said, he was the Russian ballet dancer. So he's really known for his role in Die Hard, where he plays such a... one of the German terrorists in Die Hard, Karl. but he's so good in this role. You know, as a very likable Amish man who is sort of caught in this very wholesome love triangle, and it's actually so wholesome. It's almost like his character Daniel and Harrison Ford's character John Book, isn't it? It's almost like they're having a romance, and my daughter cut together a little edit that sort of makes it look as if they are having a little bromance, I suppose. But it's very sweet, actually. Viggo Mortensen is in this, like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. This is his very first on-screen role in this movie as another Amish man. Now, you might remember when we watched The Purple Rose of Cairo, he was supposed to be in that and took his whole family to go and see the movie, only to realise that he'd been cut out. But this is it. This is his first role. Hopefully they went and saw this. Danny Glover is really good. He's in a small role as this crooked cop who slits the throat of the guy in the toilet store, and he was previously seen in The Colour Purple, the other Purple movie for the year. The little boy who witnesses everything is Lucas Haas, and he is known to me as Nash, the dream architect in Inception, Chris Nolan's Inception, in that first Saito extraction job that the movie begins with. But he's also in The Revenant and Lincoln and The Brothers Bloom and Mars Attacks. It really says something to me that he's in all these movies. I think he's a bit of a director's favourite because they're all really big directors, aren't they? Spielberg and so forth. He's also in a 1999 movie that I haven't seen yet, which is The Breakfast of Champions, based on the Kurt Vonnegut movie. It didn't make my list last year, but it's got quite a good cast, and I'd really like to see that one, so I'm going to try and track it down this year. Now, Harrison Ford, it's well known that he used to be a set dresser or a carpenter himself before he played Han Solo, or I guess he was in a few movies before that, wasn't he? American Graffiti and so forth, but he really put his carpentry skills to good use, building a birdhouse and raising a barn in this movie for real. They really just built a barn in a single day. Like, genuinely, they did it as part of making the movie. And that's quite a great scene, just to watch the whole community come together and do something to benefit everybody. Now, Witness was released in early 1985, but it was vastly overshadowed by Beverly Hills Cop, which had been released late in 1984 and was just number one. But what's crazy is Witness eventually hit number one 5 weeks after release. So can you imagine that these days? A movie hanging around in cinemas for 5 weeks, eventually reaching number one at the box office. And like I said, the script is really got a lot of plaudits, and along with another movie from 1985, Back to the Future, both of the scripts were honoured by the Writers Guild of America as members of the 101 greatest screenplays of all time. But Back to the Future did lose the Best Original Screenplay Oscar to Witness at the Writers Guild of America Awards and the Academy Awards in 1986. Sorry. Now, Harrison Ford and Peter Weir had such a great working relationship on this movie that they continued on and did the next movie, Mosquito Coast. So there you go. Really like the ending of this movie as well. It's done in such a clever way. It's not just a silly gunfight like we saw in Pale Rider. It's just a very good ending and yeah, quite a touching movie and really, really well made. One of my favourites for the year for sure. But now,
I'm driving along and I'm just singing my song. I'm in a news-free zone.
Well, welcome to the News-Free Zone, everybody. It's that time of the podcast where we look back 40 years at the news from 1985 so we can forget about the news from 2025. It was a huge week in news this week, starting off with State-sponsored terrorism in New Zealand with the French Secret Service bombing Greenpeace's flagship Rainbow Warrior in Auckland Harbour, sinking the ship in just 4 minutes and killing a Portuguese-Dutch photographer, Fernando Pereira, who was retrieving his camera equipment from the boat as it was sinking, and the second bomb went off. Now, that was a French operation called Operation Satan or Satanic, a calculated attack by a democratic Western government to prevent protesters against nuclear tests at Murora Atoll, which is just absolutely shocking, isn't it? That something like that could even happen. It's absolutely terrible. Now, that's not only all that happened this week in 1985, because at Wembley Stadium in London and at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia, we've just been in Philadelphia with Witness, haven't we? Live Aid created the world's first global concert experience using 16 satellites, reaching 150 countries and an estimated live audience of between 1.5 and 2 billion viewers. This wasn't just a concert, it was a technological marvel for the days, with over 70 acts and raising over £150 million for Ethiopian famine relief. And of course, everyone would know about Queen's legendary 20-minute set, but it also kicked off 12 hours beforehand in Australia, which had the first Live Aid concert at Sydney Entertainment Centre, which was a 4-hour event hosted by Molly Meldrum, featuring bands like In Excess, Men at Work, Australian Crawl, and a whole bunch of other ones. Now, we raised $10 million Australian to contribute to the global tally. Not only did those two events happen this week, but the third major event, I think, is President Reagan underwent emergency colon cancer surgery. Now, why was this so important? It was the first time the 25th Amendment has been invoked, because while he was out of it, Vice President George H.W. Bush became acting president for 7 hours and 50 minutes. So there you go. And of course, Nancy Reagan's astrologer wanted the surgery to be delayed, but they just ignored him. Anyway, the world was bizarre in 1980, wasn't it? But what big news that is. And over on Usenet, now Usenet is 1985's version of social media. It's the Reddit of 85. You can read Usenet articles from 40 years ago by going to olduse.net in your web browser. I found it quite interesting to do that. Now, the newsgroup net.bizarre started this week, and nobody seems to know what it's for or why it's there, but all sorts of bizarre things are being posted in that. Over on net.cooks, I found it was quite funny that someone was looking for fresh coriander in Brooklyn, and they just couldn't find it. Like, there's just nowhere has fresh coriander. They can only find powdered coriander, also known as cilantro if you're in America or Mexico. Now, it's used, of course, in lots of Mexican dishes and salsa, and I put it in guacamole, but also, of course, in Vietnamese food and other Southeast Asia dishes. It was really good to see that a lot of people on net.cooks are experimenting with flavours, and also quite interesting that they can't find the ingredients that they need. Someone on there had a tin of Thai curry paste that was all in Thai. They couldn't even read the ingredients, and they were trying to get advice as to how to use it. Of course, you've got to mix it with coconut milk, but they didn't know that. And they just stirred it in with some meat, and that resulted in a very, very fiery dish, I think. Over in net.games, everyone was talking about Witness, but not Witness the movie, Witness the Infocom text adventure from 1983, because someone was trying to get some help with that game. I just thought that was a little bit of serendipity. On net.general, everyone's going berserk because Coca-Cola have announced, and this maybe is the fourth biggest news article of the week, they've announced the launch of Coke Classic. They're bringing back old Coke, and people are talking about the pros and cons of that and all sorts of things. But basically Coca-Cola have launched New Coke and Coke Classic, and people much prefer Coke Classic. and all the conspiracy theories are flying around as to why they did it. Trying to dilute Pepsi's market share and trying to get people used to the taste of high fructose corn syrup. Finally, over on net.movies, most people are talking about Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. Now, that's not in my list this year because I don't do sequels, but that was released this week to a very mixed reception. Some people love it, think it's the best Mad Max movie. Some people don't like it at all. But yeah, not one that I've seen since I was a teenager. I remember lots of feral children talking about the apocalypse and Tina Turner in a big cage and all sorts of things like that. Anyway, that's all the news for this week in 1985. Please come back next week. We'll be spinning the bingo ball machine again and doing another movie review. But until then, don't forget to rewind.